the Fed minutes that came out last week, the market was a little shocked the Fed wasn't more dovish. They seemed very, very hawkish, and that's really where we topped out in the equity market. So we've seen that pull back now. We've two pretty big sharp down days, Friday and today. And now the question is, again, where do we go? So I think for Bitcoin itself, Bitcoin is kind of trying to figure that out as well. And in fact, we can go to the Bitcoin chart here. Let me bring that up so we can take a look. But basically, we broke down below this channel. So this was a bearish kind of channel, perfectly parallel lower line and upper line. And you can see on Friday when we had the big market sell-off, it did break. So that's a little bit of a concern. It's not the end-all be-all, though, because you're still holding above the 2017 highs. So this is going to be a big test now for Bitcoin. Does Bitcoin come down? Does it tag it and bounce? Or do we start to break lower? And again, for that, you have to look at the DXY, the dollar. I think the dollar is hugely important here. The dollar has been screaming to the upside. I do have it penciled in that we have a nice double top here, so I expect a pullback in the dollar, and that may save Bitcoin in the near term. Yeah, I think for me, at least when it comes to Bitcoin, I think that Bitcoin still has a small chance to make one more push up. It almost seems too easy. And I'm a kind of a contrarian trader where, we've broken down the Bitcoin chart, never really had a big spike that got everyone on board on the bullish side. A lot of people were bullish, but not to the extent that usually signals a reversal in trend. So I am kind of curious if we see that. And I agree. I mean, if you look at the Bitcoin's price today, it's only down a little bit. In fact, the equity markets are down percentage-wise more than Bitcoin, which is somewhat on the rarer side, especially when the dollar is as strong as it is. So I don't know if we can look at that right now and say, oh, that's actually a strong indicator for Bitcoin, but it very well could signal maybe a little bit of upside still left in Bitcoin's tank before it finally rolls over. So I think it's important to understand, I'm not debating whether or not Bitcoin's going to go lower. I do believe it does. The question is when. And that's going to be key here. Do we get one more push up, retest 25, maybe get to 28, or is it done now and just kind of going to that 12 to 13,000 range? Yeah, so I think the key is understanding for everyone watching that if the world crumbles, meaning that if China crumbles because their real estate market's crumbling, if Europe crumbles because of natural gas and Russia, basically what's going on is people will flood into the dollar. So my thinking is that people are over anticipating that. And my guess is, number one, we've heard that China's already cutting interest rates multiple times. They're stimulating their economy. My guess is, again, we're going to see natural gas. I have a key level on natural gas that shows it's likely going to top out. And so I think people are actually over anticipating these events. And when it comes and when it doesn't come to fruition, that's going to be also a trigger for the dollar. In fact, let me bring up the natural gas chart. I want to show you this.
You're kind of saying this might be priced in.
Yeah, I think it is. I honestly think it is. And in fact, if we look at the natural gas chart, there's this from early 20 or late 2021. Look at this channel and how every time we hit the upper line, it sells off. And look at this. I mean, this was an epic sell-off, but look at how close we are to hitting that again. In fact, that's for me, I'm going to look to short that on natural gas. I will be pulling the trigger on a short on natural gas, obviously proper allocation in my portfolio. But that to me is a no-brainer that it should be running into resistance here. And just to show you the power of these channels, which are parallel lines that charts seem to stick in between, take a look at the US oil chart from a while back. And I want to just get rid of some of these extra lines so you guys can really zone in on this. But this is remarkable, right? So if we go to your weekly chart, actually, let's go to the monthly chart. Look at the parallel and how it marked the top on oil. If you remember, Paul, when we were at 130, everyone was calling for $150, $200 a barrel. And what did it do? It tagged the upper end, which was perfectly parallel to these lows here, and oil collapsed back down. So I use these in my trading and every day, and it is amazingly powerful to utilize it and to be able to call tops and bottoms.
One of the biggest and oldest comparisons in the cryptocurrency industry is the Ethereum-Bitcoin debate. This debate has intensified further with news of Ethereum's transition from proof of work to proof of stake and the massive rally that followed the news. In his interview, Soloway also talks about the world's second largest cryptocurrency by market cap. He gives an update on trends to watch out for and trades that can make you some more before and after the merge. Here is Gareth Soloway on Ethereum and the urgent need for regulations for the cryptocurrency markets.
Yeah, so Ethereum is one of the trickier charts for me to analyze, mainly because of the curveball of the merge and how that affects price. I'm a true believer that the reason Ethereum has rallied, I mean, if you look at the rally, it was up over 100% off of the lows. My guess
Right.
is a chunk of that gain was due to the excitement of the merge. My
Mhm.
fear is that it's going to be a sell the news event. It's going to happen. Yes, it's a good thing for Ethereum, but I don't necessarily know if it's a short term continued catalyst. So my guess is I think you could get some bounces here, but I wouldn't be surprised if you have to go at least retest 1250 down here, which would be major, major support before it has a chance to kind of withstand the selling pressure that the U.S.
Yeah.
markets are likely to exude. So I'm in that camp where I still think there's a little bit more downside. I still think Bitcoin has further downside, and therefore by default probably Ethereum. The question for me is, has Ethereum put in its longer term low already? Which again,
Right.
I'm a little bit murky on.
How would you play that out if you were in an ETH position? Would you be looking at an entry point right now in the, say, mid 15s, or wait for a little bit more dip?
Yeah, so for me, I'd have to wait. Anytime something rallies as much as the Ethereum chart has rallied, I would be too scared or too nervous to jump in at this minor of a pullback. I mean, we're basically down, 30% or so off of those highs maybe, but it's not a huge, huge correction. Usually what you'll see is after you have such a big bear market drop in Ethereum, and again, if we go back, this was trading near 5,000, it went to 875 or so before this
Right.
bounce back. Usually you'll get a check back. So my line in the sand for me would be this little pivot right down here. You can see it's a two kind of pivot top right there and right there. And that would be your spot where if you flushed into it around 1260, 1250, that would be where a short-term long could be initiated for a bounce, a pretty significant bounce back up. We have to respect the risk side of the stock market and its impact on the crypto market, right? So I do think that earnings estimates have to come down more. Everything I'm seeing right now, they haven't come down very much at this point. So if I'm right that the economy is going to start to show more and more weakness, then those stocks are going to have to adjust down to kind of keep their status with their PE ratios. And I think that's going to be the kicker here, where if you see another 10, 20, 30% downside on the NASDAQ, maybe 20% on the S&P, then by default, it will drag down cryptocurrencies. But I'll tell you one thing that I'm looking for, and it's no one's really talking about it, but I'm curious for cryptocurrencies, and this could be a big bullish catalyst, is that do we get the Gary Genslers, the SEC, do we get some form of clarity on what kind of restrictions or what kind of rules Ethereum and the altcoins are going to have as securities? And I know everyone's like, oh my goodness, this is going to be horrible for them. But interestingly enough, clarity is what the market craves. And when you get clarity, even if it's bad initially, I believe the market will actually embrace it after an initial sell-off. So you might see it panic, right? You might see that big dip down. It's almost worth kind of throwing out some orders at ridiculously low levels, because if we get that, it sells hard, and then all of a sudden people say, wait a minute, now we know what this means. We know it. So now we can value these things. And I think, again, that could be a bottom in the crypto market.
That's it for today, guys. If you found this video useful, then don't forget to like the video and share this knowledge with your friends and family. And don't forget to check out the full video, link is in the description. Thank you.